Yes, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jose, you can start.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Active Transportation Committee. As a reminder, please mute your mics when you're not speaking to eliminate any feedback noise. Because this is a virtual meeting, a roll call vote will be taken for each action item on the agenda. All right, we will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. Jason, please take it away.
Thank you. Grant Anderson. Grant Anderson. Bob Bean.
Present on Zoom.
Thank you. Kathy Borquez.
My name is Jason Botch, and I'm with Pinal County, and I am attending in Kathy Borquez's place as she has retired.
Thank you, Jason. Stacy.
Present.
Thank you. Marielle. Marielle Brown, Phoenix. Nathan Chadwick.
Here.
Thank you. Stephen Chang. Stephen. Susan Conklew.
Here.
Thank you. Jason Crampton.
I'm here.
Stephen Esther.
I'm here.
Thank you. Tiffany Halperin. Tiffany. Ann Harron Basic. Ann.
She's in the chat. I think she doesn't have a microphone.
Okay, I'll just mark her here. Jason Harris. Jason. Jeff King. Jeff.
Here.
Thank you. Larry Kirch. Larry. Ashley Knutson. Ashley.
Present. I'm here. Can you hear
Thank
me?
you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Donna Lewandowski. Donna. Jose Macias. Jessica May.
Present.
Yeah. Jessica.
Here.
Thank you. Christine McMurdy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Randy Proch.
Here.
Thank you. Woodrow. Ward Stanford. Ward. Thank you. Kenneth Steele is no longer. We have a new committee member coming soon. Garrett Topham.
Present.
Thank you. Nathan Williams.
I'm here.
Thank you. Robert Weisner.
Present.
Thank you. Ryan Wozniak.
Present.
Thank you. Robert Yabes.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, Jose, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Is there anybody we did not mention?
Marielle Brown is here. She was late.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next item is called to the public. An opportunity for the public comment on the agenda was provided ahead of the meeting. We do have one card from Christopher Meiler inviting us to a webinar from the Association of Pedestrians and Bicycle Professionals. It's a webinar on July 28th at 11:30. Jason will be sending you information on that. It's called Placing and Designing Cooler Pedestrian Infrastructure. So again, Jason will be sending that out for you guys to look at, and hopefully you guys can attend. And that's all we have for public comments. So let's go on to approval of meeting minutes. Okay. All right. So do I have approval of the January 21st, 2020 Active Transportation Committee meeting minutes and the June 16th, 2020 Active Transportation Committee meeting / Transit Committee joint meeting minutes? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and that is Robert Yabes?
Yes, sir.
All right, do I have a second?
This is Christine McMurdy. I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. All right, Jason, do we need to take a roll call or?
Yes.
Okay, so Jason's gonna call your name and then give him your vote.
Okay. Bob Bean, yes or no?
Yes.
Jason Bojan, yes or no?
Yes.
Stacy Bridge Denzek, yes or no? Stacy. Marielle Brown, yes or no?
Yes.
Stacy, what did you say?
I'm sorry, yes for me, please.
Thank you. Nathan Chadwick?
Yes.
Susan Conclu?
Yes.
Jason Crampton?
Yes.
Stephen Esther?
Yes.
Ann Haran Basic? Jeff King?
I'm a non-voting member. Thanks.
Thank you. Ashley Knutson?
Yes.
Jose Macias?
Yes.
Jessica May?
Yes.
Christine McMurdy?
Yes.
Andy Proch?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ward Stanford?
Yeah.
Garrett Topham?
Yes.
Nathan Williams?
Yes.
Robert Weisner?
Yes.
Ryan Mosniak?
Yes.
And Robert Yabes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. Motion passes. All right, let's go on to the next item on the agenda, which is a second project deferral request from the City of El Mirage. I'm sorry, City of Tempe. City of Tempe, Alameda Drive Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project, Rural Road to 48th Street. Do we have anybody from the City of Tempe to present?
Chase, are you unmuted? Oh, no, come on.
Come on, Robert, you could just do it.
He prepared for it. I'm not doing that.
Is he on? Is he on?
Yeah, he's listed here. I don't know why he can't speak.
Yeah, there he is. I see him. I show him as muted and
Can you unmute? Come on.
In case you didn't see my message, I have signed in. This is Grant Anderson.
I got you, Grant.
Oh, come on, Chase, where are you?
If he can't get his mic to work, maybe he can call in on the phone line.
Can you do that, Chase? Oh, come on.
I've asked him to unmute, but it doesn't appear that it's working.
Let's move to the next agenda item. We'll come back.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, Jason, let's move on to the next one. So let's see, that is. Okay, project scope modification request, City of Scottsdale, 68th Street to Indian School Road to Thomas Road. Do we have somebody from Scottsdale to present?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Susan.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry if I keep clearing my throat, but it's my allergies, and I know that can be annoying to listen to. So I'll keep this brief, but if anybody wants me to go into more detail, just please let me know or raise your hand. If you go to the next slide, this project is on 68th Street. Originally, I'm showing you our original scope. It was to add bike lanes from Lafayette Boulevard, which is just north of Arizona Canal and Indian School, down to Thomas Road, which would complete bike lanes on this corridor from Tempe all the way up to Paradise Valley. Next slide. Oh, and it was also originally going to include a roundabout at Osborne, which is one of the major things that I'm asking for a scope change on. Next slide. So the two photos on the top show the section that's from Osborne to Indian School. That has raised medians in different locations and does not have left turn lanes. It has on-street parking on both sides of the road. So sometimes people mistake that stripe for a bike lane when it's not a bike lane. And it has 2 lanes in each direction. The 2 photos down below, those are the segment between Thomas and Osborne Road. That has no raised medians. It just has a 2-way center turn lane and has the 2 lanes in both directions with no on-street parking. The sidewalks throughout this segment they're pretty narrow. They're about 5 feet wide. They, at the time of the application, did not have updated curb ramps in a lot of the places. They were an old standard, and there's a lot of sidewalk riding through here. There's also on-street, bike riders that take the lane. It's kind of a mix depending on the type of rider, but we do see a lot of bicycle pedestrian activity. And also the upper right photo, that's at that's at 2nd Street and 68th Street. And I'll be talking about that later in our scope change. Next slide, please. So the request that we're making is we're not removing a roundabout, but we're building a roundabout at 68th Street and Osborne Road from the scope and add signal adjustments, because this project is still intending to remove that second travel lane in both directions so that we can add bike lanes, hopefully keep the parking, and then add some turn lanes throughout the segment. And we would need to make signal adjustments related to that instead of removing the signal at Osborne to add that roundabout. And then we would like to add an RRFB at 68th Street and 2nd Street. That's been requested by residents. That's a 1/4 mile in either direction from a signalized crossing. And that's 2nd Street itself is a pretty good low stress bike route throughout the city, or at least from Indian Bend Wash over to this area. And we intend to keep improving parts of 2nd Street in segments, but there's a lot of neighbors that already cross in this area that asked us to consider that with this project. And we would also like to reduce the length of the project by 500 feet at the north end. So that segment from Lafayette Boulevard to Indian School was already completed with new bike lanes and sidewalks when the 68th Street bridge over the Arizona Canal on an emergency basis needed to be demolished and rebuilt. So we got the cross section we needed there. That was completed in 2019. So we don't need to make any improvements up to that north end anymore. If you go to the next slide, this is just comparing the costs. We actually haven't had a real reduction in what the project costs will be, but I still wanted you to be able to look side by side. So the federal amount would remain the same. The total project cost has only changed by a little bit. Most of that's due to the program year, what we have it in, and now we have more accurate costs for for what we're trying to do throughout the project area. The next slide goes to questions. So we can go back if anybody wants to look at the map or look at the photos or ask me any questions.
Thank you, Susan.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this item is for this information discussion. Do we have any questions or comments?
Susan, this is Christine. Just a quick question. Can you go back to the pictures? The one after that. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the bottom one is the Lafayette change. Which one is the RRFB?
Oh, sorry about that. It'd be the one in the middle that's sticking more to the right. So that's where that RRFB would be.
Okay,
so we have multifamily. The neighborhood to the east has multifamily housing, and the neighborhood to the west is single family housing. But a lot of people in that neighborhood walk and bike, and then they use 2nd Street a lot of the time to get over to Old Town, which is just a few blocks from there.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this area. This is my detour from McDowell to get over to Fashion Square, so I'm familiar with this area.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I didn't give it context. Sorry about that. Because the other thing is some of the other east-west streets, you'd end up having to do a lot of like dog leg turns and things, but 2nd Street gets you over. And eventually at Goldwater, there's going to be a traffic signal there. So this corridor is still going to be the best, local bike route.
So help me out, because I'm not familiar with the infrastructure involved with RRFBs. Where does the RRFB go in that second picture, in the middle of the intersection, or is it off to the, how does that work?
Good question. I'd have to look up what they've drawn out in the concept. We're going to be pulling back the bullnoses so that we can have left turn lanes at these different cross streets. So I'm not sure yet where they're going to be putting the equipment. My guess is typically they either put it to the north leg or the south leg to avoid right turning vehicles from a certain direction. I just don't know what they're going to be doing for this one.
Okay. No, that's cool. I was just real curious about that because it's kind of a unusual little area. So really cool. Great. I'm glad that you're going to be able to do it within the scope that you already have with just a few bucks at your discretion.
Yeah, we hope so. Thank you. Depends on what everybody says today.
All right, do we have any other questions? Okay, so let's go ahead, and this is an action item. So I'm going to go ahead and read the request, and then I'll ask for a first and a second, and then we'll take a vote. So this is a recommended approval of the project scope modification request by the City of Scottsdale, 68th Street, Indian School Road to Thomasville Project SCT 21812C, congruent to the finding of the air quality conformity. Do I have a motion?
This is Christine from Goodyear. I'll move.
Thank you, Christine. Do I have a second?
This is Robert. I'll second.
All right, Robert. So we have a first from Christine, a second from Robert. Jason, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Okay. Grant, yes or no?
Yes.
Bob Bean, yes or no?
Yes.
Jason Bochin, yes or no?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Marielle?
Yes.
Nathan?
Yes.
Susan? Jason Crampton?
Yes.
Stephen Esther?
Yes.
Ann Heron Basic? Ann?
She said yes. She's on the.
Okay, thank you. Larry Kirch?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Jose?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Randy?
Yep.
Ward?
Yes.
Garrett?
Yes.
Nathan?
Yes.
Robert? Weisner?
Yes.
Ryan Ryan Rosniak?
Yes, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. So motion passes.
Jose, let's bounce back to Tempe. Chase is on the line now.
Oh, okay. All right, let's go back to item.
Can everyone hear me now?
Okay, so yeah, this is the item from the City of Tempe, a second project deferral request, City of Tempe, Alameda Drive Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project, Rural Road to 48th Street. Go ahead, Chase.
Great, and everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I apologize for those technical difficulties. Thank you, Chair Jason, members of the Active Transportation Committee. I'm Chase Wallman, Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe. And thanks for the opportunity today to discuss our second deferral request for the Alameda Drive streetscape project. Next slide, please. So to give everyone context of where this project is within the region, this project's located along Alameda Drive. This is the central part of Tempe on our western border, starting at our western border with the city of Phoenix at 48th Street. So that's our western boundary along Alameda Drive. It continues east. It hits I-10 and the future planned I-10 pedestrian bridge project, which is part of that I-10, I-17 study. One of the proposed pedestrian bridges. So it'll connect there, which is right next to the Tempe Diablo Stadium as well on the west side of the I-10 there. And then as we continue east of the I-10, continuing along Alameda Drive, this kind of character of this area is mostly industrial until you get to the Union Pacific Railroad, this black dash line here. And that to the east is kind of our boundary where, again, it picks up to be more residential. And everywhere going east of there. So this map on the right is our bike boulevard map. So in addition to the regional connections, you'll see this first phase ends at Rural Road, so 48th Street to Rural Road. But for future phases, for the second phase, this project as part of our bike boulevard projects within the city of Tempe actually continues east and will eventually connect to the city of Mesa. Next slide, please. Locally, beyond the regional significance for us, the local significance is that we're purely missing bicycle infrastructure as well as missing a lot of pedestrian infrastructure. As you see the sidewalk on this photo to the right, that's missing. But this is a major gap in as far as east-west connectivity through the city. These red lines are representative of bike lanes that are running north-south along the project corridor. So we have numerous north-south connections. But this east-west connection is badly needed for the city of Tempe. And it actually is well traveled along the bicycle community where they can get past these gaps. Obviously, we have a huge gap, one being the Union Pacific Railroad, which was that black dash line, kind of the eastern part of this project, but also the I-10, which is going to be addressed by this I-10 pedestrian bridge project. So the local significance for us is obviously this east-west connectivity that's sorely needed in Tempe, connecting these employment destinations that are in this industrial area, but as well as the recreational and entertainment venues that are going to be west of the I-10, the Tempe Diablo Stadium area, and then those recreational fields as well to the west of there, but then connecting those neighborhoods that are east of the Union Pacific Railroad along this lower volume, lower speed collector, which is in between Broadway and Southern. And in addition, the city also committed its separate funding beyond the I-10 identified improvements for the pedestrian bridge. The city also programmed within its CIP to have public art along that bridge. So this project will connect to not only the I-10 funded bridge itself, but also that public art that we'll be placing with that I-10 improvement. Next slide, please. So with that, some of the specific improvements that we're talking about is, of course, addressing the lack of bicycle infrastructure. So the corridor changes as far as obviously available right of way and some of the constraints, but this is going to be a holistic streetscape project. So we don't only want to address the bicycle infrastructure, but also the pedestrian level as well, and also address the traffic calming. So what's being proposed with this final design is the addition of medians, the addition of curb extensions or landscape chicanes along the project corridor, as well as a buffer, depending on what the available right-of-way is along the corridor, as well as the land use. So what we're proposing along the industrial area is going to be different than what we're proposing with the residential area. So we're going to be improving the bicycle infrastructure as well as the ADA, the necessary ADA improvements, which include the directional ramps and sidewalks along the corridor. Next slide, please. So this project was originally awarded just over 1.5 million in transportation alternatives funding, and that was originally programmed for the construction work year of 2019. So we started our final design in January 2018, did our public outreach, and we requested our first deferral, and that was in April of 2019. And that the main reason for that first deferral was due to a water line break that was along this project corridor. So although unfortunate that we had that water line break, it also gave us an opportunity to be able to relocate that water line. So it even gave us more opportunities as far as what interventions we're able to put into the streets, including the opportunity for landscape medians, which otherwise weren't possible. So although it was unfortunate that we had this water line break, it did give us that opportunity to be able to have some landscape medians and other interventions that we weren't otherwise. But because this was a water line break, we did not have this programmed in Tempe CIP, so we needed time in order to program this separate water line project to be able to relocate that utility. So at this point, we're at 90% final design, and that was completed this past February. Next slide, please. This current deferral request, along with just the time needed to get this water line identified in our CAP. It wasn't identified as a future improvement as far as water utilities, so we didn't have that yet programmed. So in order to have the time to do that, we needed that first deferral, which goes into the second deferral. But along with that, we've also experienced, as we have in the past as well, some coordination issues with the Union Pacific Railroad. And that was to get the diagnostic actually held. So what we're coming today is for the second deferral request. And that's, again, to give us the time to be able to program this water line replacement and relocation, as well as to give us the time. We just held our diagnostic for the Union Pacific. So now we're beginning the final design with Union Pacific's consultant to do this portion of the Alameda Drive project, just the Union Pacific crossing. So because of those two reasons, we're requesting a second deferral, and that's to move it from what would be work year 2020 to work year 2021. Next slide, please. As far as the city, we are, of course, committed to the project. We as in water utilities, not transportation, as committed to this water relocation project, and we have that programmed into our future CIP for this project. In addition, we requested an additional $200,000 just for the crossing alone for the Alameda Drive area. So this was an additional $200,000 along with the local match funding and final design funding that we already had programmed through our CIP. And then, of course, project management staff will be involved and continue to be involved until the completion of the project. Next slide, please. So with that, and with those delays of moving this deferral from work year 2019 to 2020, our new proposed schedule is that we will plan to finish up design here in March of 2021, and we will start construction in May of 2021 with anticipated construction timeline of about a year, and that will also coincide with the water line construction. So we didn't want to go out twice, obviously, to do the water line construction and the streetscape project. So we are attempting to align it with the newly programmed water line reconstruction project. So we're looking at May 2021 for the new project schedule as far as the start of construction. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to present our second deferral request, and definitely take any questions that members of the Active Transportation Committee have at this time, or direct them to Robert.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jason with the City of Chandler. I had a question. Chase, do you guys have an agreement in place with UPRR? I'm asking, through something similar a few years ago. I had to request a second deferral on our Union Pacific crossing at the Western Canal. And it was tedious trying to work with UPRR, and we finally got through it, but getting that agreement in place really took a lot longer than we thought. So for our second deferral, we actually deferred it 2 years instead of just one. So I'm just wondering if you guys have the agreement in place. If not, do you feel confident that will be coming soon? Because just 1 year deferral could leave you in a very tight timeline come next year.
Thank you, Jason, for that question. And I should have mentioned that this is an identified public crossing. This Alameda Drive is already an identified public crossing. So this is a crossing that's made quite a bit already. But yeah, Union Pacific is requiring additional improvements to it, even though it's already identified public crossing. So what they proposed with the diagnostic that we held was improvements to the concrete panel. So in the earlier photo, you probably saw a little bit of asphalt that was there. And what they're proposing is to upgrade all of those panels to concrete. And I think we were also addressing the bollards there, but this already is an approved crossing. So I think that's what is making us confident about this timeline only deferring in 1 year versus 2 years. But I'll defer to Robert if he has any other additional insight on that one.
But Jason, we're about ready to sign the contract. They will do the improvements as part of this deal. So the improvements were within the railroad purview. We are about ready to sign the contract. It's not cheap either. Sorry.
I have a question.
We're just asking for 1 year.
All right, who's next? Who wants to ask a question?
This is Grant, Youngtown.
Go ahead, Grant.
Your schedule shows your streetscape construction ending in 2022. However, if you only extend to 21, that means you have to have all the funds expended and the project generally complete. But your schedule doesn't say that with your streetscape construction.
It's the obligation is going to be in 2021. So the construction time doesn't need to be ending in 2021. It just has to be started in 2021. That's how I understand it, Grant.
They want to make sure because you're going to use some federal funds, and sometimes they would like it completed before they finalize the project.
I will ask ADOT, but that's how we've done our projects. So you obligated in 2021 and it can extend beyond 2021.
That is correct, generally speaking.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Bean. I have a question.
Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not exactly the same issue, and not under your control, but what do we know about, if anything, about the timing of the bike pedestrian bridge over I-10? I'm guessing that, that's ADOT's answer, but what do you know about the timing of that?
Let me answer this as best as I could. The final bids that they chose, I think 3 groups to bid on the project. So the final bid is supposed to be submitted by August. So the final design will be from August until I think May, and then they start construction next year at after May. That's what I understand it to be. So it would be probably late 2021 if they put or early 2022 when they actually put the bridge on.
So the expectation then is that construction will reasonably well sync up with the rest of the completion of this project?
We may be ahead a little bit.
Let's say within a year.
Yes, it would be. Or maybe 6 to 8 months, maybe. I don't.
Okay. That's my concern. And some people in this committee know that I've gotten grumpy in the past about approving money and then have projects get delayed for extensive periods of time when we could have allocated money to something else. But if it's in that general kind of time frame, then I'll just I'll bite my lip and keep quiet.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions?
I have one. This is Susan.
Go ahead, Susan.
Robert, you probably know what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, you're not allowed to ask questions.
Well, and it's been a while since we've talked about this. This is a great project. People already use the corridor, so I can't wait to see all the increased use once the improvements go in. Are you able to, or have you, or will you have all the easements you need just west of the Union Pacific Railroad to connect over to back to the street across? Or I think you have one easement and you're going to have to adjust the alignment or something, or get a new easement.
We're actually dealing with that right now, and we should have an answer on how we could use the transportation easement on that area. They are, the design for that segment is already, they want it a little bit more straight. That's why we're talking to the property owners. If not, we have that alignment already mapped out. And we have actually 15% plan for it at this time. So
Okay.
whatever we do, it will be done.
It'll connect one way or the other through there.
One
Okay.
way or the other.
Okay. Because somebody recently wanted to go out and mark some lines, and I'm like, please don't do that. I'm like, please do not draw any attention to this area.
Yeah.
Let the city do what they're doing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Do we have any more questions for Robert and Chase? Okay, here and now, this is a action item. Again, I will read the action and then take a vote. Ask for a motion. Recommended approval of the second deferral from the City of Tempe, Alameda Drive Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project, Rural Road to 48th Street. Application number TMP 19-740. Do I have a motion?
This is Jason with Chandler. I would make a motion. We recommend approval.
Thank you, Jason. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Susan.
Okay, Susan, thank you. So we have Jason and we have Susan. All right, Jason, go ahead and take a vote.
Okay, thank you. Grant, yes or no? Grant, yes or no? Bob Bean, yes or no?
Yes.
Jason Bochin, yes or no?
Yes.
Stacy Bridge-Denzik,
Yes.
Marielle Brown,
Yes.
Nathan Chadwick,
Yes.
Susan Conklin,
Yes.
Jason Crampton, Stephen Esther,
Yes.
Ann Haram Basic. Let's see here. Larry Kirch. Larry. Ashley Knutson.
Yes.
Jose.
Yes.
Jessica.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Garrett.
Yes.
Nathan. Nathan. Robert Weisner.
Yes.
Ryan Wozniak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Grant Anderson was yes in chat, Jason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So a motion passes. Congratulations to Tempe. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the second Scottsdale request, a project scope modification request, City of Scottsdale, Thomas Roads, 56th Street to 73rd Street. Right,
Thank you. Thank you. So we're coming in for a second project modification request, and these actually overlap, but when we applied, we were amazed to be selected for both. You just never know. Next slide, please. And actually this one we're keeping them in the program years that they're in, but they're both under design now. And this project is funded in 2022 for construction, but the project area is on Thomas Road from our border with Phoenix at 56th Street over to 73rd Street, which is just past Scottsdale Road. We previously had a project a few years back where we built bike lanes from 73rd Street over to Indian Bend Wash, and we just finished Hayden and Thomas area. So this is the remaining gap in bike lanes on Thomas through the whole city. And this project intended to remove, it's got two westbound travel lanes and 3 eastbound travel lanes. So this project has always been looked at to remove that third eastbound travel lane. It's already 2 and 2 the rest of the way through Scottsdale. And then we had planned to put a roundabout at Thomas and 68th Street when we applied. Next slide, please. So this shows the area. Again, this is an older area of the city with 5-foot sidewalks. It really doesn't give a lot of space to people, but there are people that ride along the sidewalks through here. We've got from about 64th Street over to Scottsdale Road, we have a lot of commercial properties. And then when you head farther east from this area, there's residential. There's a lot of multifamily residential as well. So those 2 top photos are looking between Scottsdale Road and 70th Street. And then the lower left is at 68th Street. And I put an inset to show how many conflicts along the sidewalk at the southeast corner occur right now for anybody that's riding or walking or has a disability that's using a mobility device trying to get through that area with all that infrastructure in the way. And then the lower right corner, that's really close to Rage Bicycles, where there's this lower parking lot below the sidewalk and a guardrail or a barrier and then poles in the way. So it creates a lot of pinch points and issues for people using the sidewalks. And then the project itself would update all the curb ramps anywhere where we need them. Let's see, next slide, please. So once we looked at the feasibility of how a roundabout would work, because we do have a policy to always consider roundabouts before we look at other improvements. Once we looked at the feasibility, we realized it wasn't going to work without having to acquire 1 or 2 commercial properties and possibly a commercial building that I'll show you in the next slide. But instead, we would add some minor intersection improvements. We're going to deal with the power poles and light poles and different things. And we're also going to try to make, just bigger, maybe more of a bigger landing at each corner for people crossing the streets, and then add signal upgrades to shift the signals over where the new travel lanes will be. And we would do that throughout the project at the existing signalized intersections, since if we're going to shift everything to the south, striping wise, to add our new bike lanes and take out that third eastbound lane, we would need everything to line up where it is. And we're also making sure that we have good left turn lanes and right turn lanes at the intersections so that we still keep traffic flowing the way it needs to while still providing space for people riding bikes. And then we would also add improvements. We debated adding this to the 68th Street project, but it makes better sense with Thomas Road so that it happens with the intersection. But we wanted to add improvements going south from here at 68th and Thomas and extend them down to East Virginia Avenue. That's about a 1/4 mile. It will, there's already a little bit of bike lane striping in that area, but this would remove the excess travel lanes that are on 68th Street and help everything line up with the intersection improvements that are going to happen just south of the intersection. So if you go to the next slide, that shows the Thomas and 68th intersection. So if you look at the northwest corner, that's where that property, that commercial building comes up really close to the road. And they looked at different ways on how could we make a roundabout really work, and it wasn't going to work there. So that's why we've decided to remove it from this project. And we do believe that creating the cross section that we want with both of these projects, how they intersect, and adding bike lanes in every direction, but also adding the turn lanes that are needed, from curb to curb, we feel like we can have a good project that's going to work for all modes. And there's also a lot of transit activity east-west on Thomas Road. So this is why we feel like this new scope would be the best to make this a complete street. The next slide just has our cost comparisons. We're actually saving, I think, quite a bit on this one by taking that roundabout out of there. So originally, the total was over $4.8 million for that, and now we're bringing it down to 3.3, and it's reducing the local and federal split quite a bit, I think. So if anyone has questions.
Thank you, Susan. Does anybody have any questions for Susan?
Yes, I do.
I have one.
All right. Well, there's somebody else before Randy. Who was before Randy? Was it Randy?
Grant. That was Grant.
Oh, sorry, Grant.
Yeah, it was Grant. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Grant, and we'll go to Randy.
No problem. I heard about what you're doing, but I didn't really catch what has caused the delay that you have to ask for another extension.
On the Thomas Road project, we're not having a delay. We're keeping it on the same schedule that we are. We just aren't going to be adding a roundabout in this project, but that's the way the grant was written. So it's just to remove that from the project.
You're asking for a second.
Oh, we had to change the agenda order today, so you might be looking at the Tempe one. That was the one we just did before this one.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're right.
So for this one, we're changing our scope, modifying it, and not doing the roundabout, and then we're making
the modified
some
scope.
other.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, this is the second one. Sorry.
No, my fault.
All right, go ahead, Randy.
Thank you. I think I've seen transit work with a roundabout. I think Scottsdale, you actually have the answer with Mustang Library, if I recall correctly.
Do.
Yeah,
we do.
You mentioned
and that's
signal modifications.
Roundabout.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. I thoroughly enjoy the design. You mentioned signal modifications here. Are you having to move or change poles?
I believe we are not just the mast arms. We're not just adjusting the mast arms. I think we're some of the poles need to be updated as part of that. We're not moving the poles. We're not widening the road, so we're not changing curb lines. But because of the way we're doing the mast arms, I think that's going to require new poles as well.
Okay.
That way, we're not going to be lining up with where all of our old striping used to be, or where it is currently.
Okay. I know there are new ASHTO standards, and Phoenix is also working on a standard for poles and mast arms. To that extent, we're running into a situation here in Peoria where I have a beautiful Hawk signal that I'd like to reuse because it's being removed. However, with these new standards, we're learning that we're going to have to just buy new poles and arms. Has that cost been looked into, and are you removing too much money from your scope in case you do need to buy new stuff?
Thank you for that question. I don't know. We got an updated cost on what they would need signal wise, and I'm assuming they are looking at that new standard. From what I understand is, at least programming wise at our end, we're still keeping our old local amount that we already programmed out of our own funds at what it is now in case we have issues. But I mean, that would be for us to have to solve that. We've already gotten the updated costs on what all that equipment is going to be, though. I don't have it in front of me, but I can find out if that helps you with what you're dealing with there. Like we're not gonna come back to MAG later and go, sorry, we totally needed some of that money back. We already got whatever cost they need for all that. I mean, they updated what the signal equipment would be.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope that you can reuse the one you have. I mean, if there's a way
the recycling yard, yeah.
Yeah.
It's junk. I can't use it at all.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Susan? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and do recommendation and second, and then first and the second. All right, recommended approval of project scope modification request for City of Scottsdale's Thomas Road 56th Street to 73rd Street project, SCT 22-804C, conjunction to the findings of air quality conformity. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Robert Yabes.
Robert, thank you, Robert. Do I have a second?
Second,
Grant. Second.
Okay, that's Randy, second. So we have a first from Robert, second from Randy. All right, Jason, let's go ahead and take a vote.
Grant, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bob Dean,
Yes.
Jason Bochin,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Marielle,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Susan. Oh, well, sorry. Jason Crampton,
Yes.
Stephen Esther,
Yes.
and Sharon Basic. I think she's probably saying yes in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah. Larry Kirch,
Yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
Jose,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Ward, Garrett,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Robert Weisner,
Yes.
Ryan Wozniak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Susan, for your presentation. All right, let's
Thank
move on
you.
to let's move on to the next item on the list. All right. This is a little different. Do we have any announcements from any updates from the members of the agency?
Tempe has one.
Go ahead, Susan.
No, I'm just reminding them that they have a really important announcement.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm missing something, Susan.
Come on, you guys just opened an underpass
Oh, yeah.
like 2 days ago.
It's not completely open yet. It's just a trial opening run yet. It's one of the projects we had was constructing an underpass underneath McClintock on the Rio Salado South Bank. So from now, I think you can start in Phoenix from what, 18th? Whatever the beginning is, of a continuous path that will go all the way to Mesa without hitting any traffic lights. So you can take the south bank of Rio Salado all the way to Mesa from Phoenix. And this one also has some artwork in it. It's pretty. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Anybody else anything to report?
Jose, I just want to remind everybody to, rank those design assistance projects. And if you submitted one, please rank one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And I believe it's our due August. What day was that, Jason?
Friday, August. I'm looking right now.
August 7th?
I think it's the 14th.
14th, Friday,
the
August
14th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All right, any other members? All right, let's move on to the. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have a project in Tempe that doesn't require any parking. It's 130 units. Do you guys want to hear how we did it?
Cul-de-sac.
We're not requiring any parking for these. We're requiring a lot of different things, a lot of TDM. So if anybody is interested, I can see if I can get one of my staff to present it.
Interested.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
please.
interested to see that. All right, so we'll go with Jason and see if we can put you on agenda there, which actually it's our next item, which is request for any future agenda items. Are there any requests by the HC members for an item they want to hear in the future agenda?
I have one. This is Susan. And it could be a very brief one, but I'm just curious what each city is doing, at least for the unknown future, for public meetings. I know like some cities are doing Zoom meetings that the public can be part of. And also I want to know if any of them are looking at the public who can't use the internet. I mean, how can they be involved with meetings with an alternate format to having regular open houses, like project type meetings?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Does anybody have any item they want to hear in the future?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Bean with the Coalition of Arizona Bicyclists.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Before the end of the year, I would like to have an update on the various bike pedestrian bridge projects that are part of the spine project, the ones crossing I-10 and I-17. We talked about the Alameda today, but just to get an update on what the latest thinking is in terms of when those bridges are expected to be built, and the most recent, if there have been any changes to the locations or tweaks to the locations, I'd like to get an update on that.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody else?
Chairman, this is Ryan Wozniak. I was curious as to the progress on the AASHTO bikeway design guideline. Does anybody know the status of when that update's going to be released?
Thank you, Ryan. I'm sure we'll follow up on that. Anybody else? Okay.
This
Hearing none.
is Marielle. I would like an update on the demonstration projects that Jason mentioned previously and the idea of having a demonstration project program.
Okay, thank you, Mira. All right, last call. Anybody else? All right, let's go to our last item. Our next meeting of the Active Transportation Committee will be a virtual meeting, and it's typically scheduled for August 18th, 2020 at 1 p.m. So we'll see you guys then. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Ryan Wozniak.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Do I have a second?
Robert Yabes, second.
Okay, so we have Ryan, and then we have Robert. So we don't need to take a roll call, so we'll all just say aye, and we'll see you guys in August. So those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, and you guys be safe, and we'll see you in August.